I think that some of you read my newsletter. I already got an email from Kaya. I want to tell you all that I am okay. I kind of flooded emails because I wrote this article about the dark night of the soul. And I think a lot of people are like, Sifu must really not be well. And look, I was definitely not well for a couple of nights. I was just not sleeping. I was watching my baby for the first half, and I'm not like awake watching her, but I'm such a light sleeper that every little thing she does wakes me up, so I'm not sleeping. And then I would go to bed, go to sleep, and I just could not sleep for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. Insomnia. I'm just like laying there thinking about stuff. And when you don't sleep at all for a couple nights, you really just don't feel well. And I was telling my wife, Grace, I'm like, I'm having a crisis right now. Like, I really am not okay. And then I got COVID, which is the best thing that happened because then they just let me sleep for a couple of nights because I was so sick I couldn't watch the baby. And then I felt great, like getting COVID really snapped me out of it. But for those of you who read my newsletter, some of you who sent me nice messages, I am, not perfect because I'm never perfect, but I am okay. I'll seek help if I need it, but I got some sleep, so I'm feeling okay. I will be doing a talk about the dark night of the soul probably next week, or maybe it's the weekend. But this week is the first Thursday, so I'll do question and answer. I know I already have a great question from Tanya, and if you guys have questions as well, you can raise your hand if you're at home watching. You type your question to me. We'll start with my disclaimer, which is this is not the only answer. This is not written in stone anywhere. This is not the one truth. It is my truth at this moment. It is a truth, and then if you ask me again in 10 years, I'll give you a better answer, I hope, if I've done something good with the next 10 years. But I'll start with Tanya. Do you want to actually ask it? Because I forgot. Like, unmute yourself and go. Quickly and loudly.
I'm not sure I can tell that enough for you.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll just read it to you. In planning and making choices, it makes sense to watch carefully the borders of what you currently know to be the realm of possibility. And sometimes those plans go through iterations of downsizing over and over again as the border falls them higher and higher on approach. In some ways that can be freeing as you're living simpler, but it can also mean feel like watching the stock dwindle to nothing before it flips out. After you push your imagination, your realm, beyond those borders to discover new territory, it's going to be a huge and terrifying thing to mindset. What's your advice?
Yeah, I love this question. She sent it to me earlier today, and I said, I want you to ask it to me in class tonight. So, for those of you who didn't quite hear all that, it's like I'm trying to make decisions. Maybe I think usually what I'm referring to is an important big decision, because if it's a very small decision, most people don't feel like they kind of hem and haw so much and second guess themselves about it, but some people do. And I feel really bad for people who all day long are just constantly second guessing. One of the things that martial arts teaches us to do is to be decisive and to not second guess because, like Miyagi Sensei said in Karate Kid, walk on one side of the road, okay, walk on the other side of the road, okay, walk down the middle, squish like a grape, and you're kind of like, I don't know, which way do I go? The car's coming, you gotta choose a side and go, or the punch is coming, you gotta choose a side and go. And that can feel sometimes like the opposite of what Tanya is asking for, like being creative. It can feel the opposite of being creative when I have to quickly make a decision. And that might be true. And I think on the other hand, it also is freeing. So Tanya's describing the sense that she gets about making a decision, whereas like I start with all of these possibilities, and then I kind of, slowly whittle them down to a few number. And on the one hand, it feels like having lots of possibilities is very freeing. And we say this in martial arts and in lots of areas in life. To a beginner, everything is possible. And then to an expert, like very few things are possible, right? And that makes you think that, well, you should just be a beginner forever. And yes, totally, have a beginner's mindset. Always try to see what's possible and that's going to be a wonderful way to be more creative. And then, when you do end up kind of whittling down to fewer and fewer choices, recognize the freedom in that. The freedom from second guessing, from having all of these different directions you're being pulled in. If you walk into a Baskin Robbins and there are 31 flavors, I don't go to Baskin Robbins. It's the ice cream shop that I reference the most, but it's not the best ice cream in LA. There are lots of really amazing places. I go to this place on Washington called Ginger's Divine, and it is really good. They have lots of flavors, and I only choose from like the 3 that I've had because they're always so good. I find myself trapped in that way. I go someplace, I find something that I really like, and I'm like, this is so good. Why would I ever do anything else? But that is a kind of a way of being free, because I'm not just stuck, mesmerized by all the options and trapped in being unable to choose. But it is limiting, and there are some flavors that I'll probably never try. Gingers will retire them, and I will just never have eaten them, and that's going to be sad for me. But I'm really going off on a tangent here on your question, Tanya. I think that I already got to the main crux of it, is just having that beginner's mindset and being okay with not knowing. Having options, being creative kind of means that you're not really tethered to what you've already done. And that's very tough for us as human beings, because it's the way that we are really designed. Like, you try something and it worked out well, right? You're still alive because you did this thing, and so your brain like wires that part, and it's like, I gotta keep doing that because it kept me alive. And so it's very easy to kind of fall into these ruts and get attached to doing the same thing. Try every once in a while to just shake yourself out of that and try something else. Try a different flavor of ice cream, drive a different way to work, walk a different way to the park, whatever, and kind of see how that opens you up, frees you up in the moment. And there will almost for sure be a level of discomfort with that. And so be okay with discomfort, kind of embrace the discomfort. It is something that if you start to embrace it and you kind of seek it out, then you will feel more comfortable with discomfort, which I know is a paradox, but it is really a big part of our practice. We're always kind of seeking our discomfort and kind of pushing ourselves through our limitations and out of our comfort zone or our little bubbles. So I think if you practice it, you practice not being in your rut, you practice just branching out and trying other things, then that can help. I think I'm not going to disagree with the whole premise of your question, but I do think that the idea, like you said, of when you start to narrow down your choices, it can feel like a stock is disappearing and like going to zero. I have had that experience with actual stock and with making decisions, so I get that. And I think usually it's going to be more of a positive experience. So when you do feel like this is basically what we're talking about is FOMO. Like I'm worried about missing out on all these other opportunities, and that kind of is a force for keeping us indecisive most often. So be okay with letting go of options that you know are not the best, or you're at least reasonably sure are not the best, and then just don't worry about it anymore. You'll probably be fine. Other question? Okay.
So I've been playing a lot lately with the idea of like kind of presence in everyday life, and just when often I think I'm present, it's almost challenge that and almost then just be with that. I feel like often we put definitions of what that is, but then we're limited. So my question kind of is like, what's your experience sort of just like rolling with it? And I guess it goes to the last question, just sort of accepting whatever's showing up.
So you're talking about I'm working on being present in everyday life, but then do things happen that you feel like you are not able to roll with and be present with? You're just like, I gotta stop this from happening? Is that what you're saying with your experience?
No, I almost get too relaxed, and then it's hard to be able to move quickly or to get stuff done because I'm in this
Yeah, I get it. I've had that experience too sometimes. You've heard me talk about this before. I like the idea of zanshin. So mushin and zanshin are like related states. Mushin is the state of consciousness that we're trying to get into with meditation, no mind. And these are not opposing states. They're not, on some level, they're not even really different. But when I think of this like meditative state, I generally feel like this is a very relaxed state where we have, you know, very little distraction and thought going on, and I'm just really here present, and it feels nice. It feels almost like I'm wrapped up in a blanket of the breath and in the moment, and it's like it's just cozy. Sometimes it feels like that. Sometimes it's like it's a battle to stay focused on the breath and not let the other things come in. But usually, mushin, this flow state of being in the present, has a tendency to feel like that, very comfortable. And zanshin is more of a ready state where I'm kind of more alert, and I think of it like my body has like an actual kind of buzz quality to it. Not I'm buzzed, but like I'm buzzing with energy. And this is how you might feel in Tai Chi versus like I'm sleeping, I'm so relaxed. I'm just sitting in meditation, sometimes I'm getting so relaxed. But in Tai Chi, like the way that we're moving, the way that we're breathing kind of allows us to be at a certain limit of relaxation, but we're still kind of up and moving. And the breathing is, because the inhale and exhale are even, it kind of keeps me slightly elevated with my awareness and with my energy level. And so you can literally do something like that, like actually just do Tai Chi, or do breathing exercises that kind of keep you more energized rather than relaxed. You want to be able to do all of this. Many people don't have this problem. Many people are like, I need to relax and I need to not be, but it's not a buzzing with energy, I'm exploding with stress. So of course, finding the balance. And it sounds like you feel like oftentimes you're a little bit unbalanced in the too relaxed direction. So zanshin, right, I'm ready. Think of it like in a fighting stance. You're not like this is a bad fighting stance. You're like this. You're not tense, but your body is ready. And oftentimes we'll move around a little bit because this keeps us, keeps us moving, it keeps us energized, keeps us feeling ready. And this is a state of mind that you would use, maybe more likely in sparring or self-defense, or when you're just, trying to be in a focused but ready state. I'm not focused to the point where I'm like excluding the sensory input around me. I'm kind of taking it in and very aware of my body and surroundings as well. Whereas mushin can have that quality, but generally speaking, you're more aware, your awareness is generally more internalized. So you can play around with that idea a little bit. Play around with breathing exercises and movement, just the way that you are in your body, the way that you're moving your body, the way that you're standing, the amount of actual, tension or lack thereof is going to have a big impact on your mental and emotional state too. So if you are very physically relaxed and you feel like you're done being that way, then you want to get up and move and do something, or stand in a certain posture that makes you feel a little bit more energized. Try that. Other question? Zane?
Yes, I would like to ask, what do you think about the connection between meditation and faith and devotion? How would it be different for somebody who has faith and devotion to a god or a higher power? Do you think they progress in the same way? Do they merge? Does that make sense?
Yeah, great question. So I'll start with the way that I heard Mike Seaton talk about this years and years ago, and I certainly agree with it, even though it's not exactly my experience. It's a great answer. So I'll start with this. And he got it from one of his teachers, possibly when he was living in an ashram many years ago. The idea of meditation without any kind of devotion or faith has a tendency to feel, let's say, like clinical or kind of dry, right? And there is less of an emotional kind of connection to it usually. This does not mean that this is the way that it has to be for you, but for most people, generally speaking, without any kind of connection to like a higher power or something that you actually do feel like an emotional connection with. The aspect of meditation where you're opening your heart, right? Mycetha likes to describe it like stilling the mind and opening the heart. So if you're just stilling the mind and there's no opening the heart, there is an aspect of meditation that you might think of as being lacking, right? Now, I am so hesitant to talk about it in terms of lacking, because then people start to think like, well, I'm supposed to be doing this or I'm supposed to be doing that, and I'm not at a level yet where I want to be. And this whole idea of like enlightenment or our journey as being like I'm supposed to be somewhere where I'm not, I think is kind of an unhelpful thing, because we're always kind of interacting with our meditation practice or life from a place of want or a place of like needing something more. So I'm really hesitant to say like you gotta have this or you're not getting the full picture. But I'll say at the least, for most people, you'll probably find that maybe it's faster or more. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. I mean like you're going to get further faster with your meditation practice, with your internal work. You'll probably feel like it is a more like holistic or all-encompassing, like your whole being is more in it. Now, I usually am talking about, and even in my own practice, am more like on the clinical side of it, like we're breathing and we're focusing on the breath. I don't talk a lot about the divine and connection to God, and part of it is because people believe in different things, and that, you know, on the one hand you can say like, well, it's watered down, and sure, it kind of is. But on the other hand, it's like, you know, depending on what you believe, let's put it the other way. There is no belief system that says, breathing, we don't do that. I mean, if your religion is against breathing, you absolutely need a new religion, because you will not last long in the current one. Very few, you know, faiths or religions have a problem with connecting to the breath and, you know, focusing on it. And there are a lot of at least, you know, narrow interpretations that would say, like, meditation, you don't do that, that's the devil's work. But if they really knew what it was, they would see it. But I would say that in the times where I do really feel like I'm connecting to some kind of a higher power, or just kind of inviting an emotional quality into my meditation, whether it's like, as I mentioned in the blog, my mom passed. Like, I had some emotional meditations. I was just thinking about my mom, and it wasn't really the traditional kind of meditation that I talk about, where I'm not trying to think about anything. It's kind of like my mind started going there, so I just invited it in, and I sit there and cry for an hour. And it was really nice to experience that. And it's not something that I choose to dwell on for years, even though it still happens sometimes. But that is, for most people, I'm going to say, like a more full experience. So go for it. Absolutely. And if you're like, I don't believe in any of that stuff, I am not even agnostic, it's like I know what life is, it is what is here before me and what I can see and nothing else, then there is no reason for you not to have a great meditation practice, because you can feel your breath and it's right there. Now, I'm starting to dive into what I'll probably talk about in the next talk about the dark night of the soul, but in this whole idea, the interaction between faith and like our journey is necessarily, there is an unknown there. You're headed towards something that you don't know what it is or what you're after. even if you are just thinking like meditation, sons, God, like no spiritual anything, it's just like I'm trying to, get to the highest state of consciousness that I can, where I am really free of attachment to thought or whatever it is. There's still, it's reliant on some kind of faith that there is something that you have not yet experienced directly, something you can't really see or feel. And, enlightenment and God, all of this stuff has that element to it, where it is unknown. If we knew it, then it would be pretty obvious. Like, everyone would just be like, oh, this is obviously the truth and this is what we do. That's clearly not the case, because so many different faiths and even within the same general belief set, so many different avenues of going up there. You can think of it like the same mountain, and everyone's kind of heading up different tracks to get there. But the mountain is like, the top of the mountain is up in the clouds. And we're assuming that there's a top to the mountain, because that's generally how mountains work. But we don't know that. We might get up there in the clouds and it just keeps going forever. Or we get up in the clouds and we never really make it any further than that. We just get stuck or we die or whatever. But there is a faith that there's kind of something that we're heading towards. And that is like the rub, the faith, the unknown, the uncertainty of it is what gives so many issues to the youth. Now, you might get to the point where you absolutely believe so fully in your faith and your practice, that where you're going, that to you it is fact. And that is a wonderful place to be, because it gets rid of all the stuff that Tanya was asking about, like all of the, I don't know, should I do this, should I do that, should I do this meditation technique, should I do that, should I pray to this deity or pray to that deity? It's just like and you go, right? Having that kind of certainty can really be wonderful and freeing. So in that way also, I think that if you have a very strong faith, and your faith says, this is how we practice, then that's also really nice. A very simple way to kind of connect with your meditation practice, or connect your meditation practice, or your internal practice, whatever it is, to your faith, is just like, it's simple. It says do this. I'm not going to say that I'm smarter than the people who wrote this stuff down or taught it to me. So I'm just going to do what they said to do. And there's something really wonderful about that. And I would say that every great teacher, and I aspire to be one myself, would say that the best we can hope for as a teacher is to be a stepping stone on which our students kind of get up to the next level, whatever that is. So very commonly wrapped up in faith and religion, organized religion especially, is like, this is what we do, and this is the way that the founder said to do it, and we just do this and follow it to a T, and don't go any further, and don't ask questions, and just do it, right? And that is limiting in its own way. So it's a paradox. It's freeing and it's limiting. I think at some point we all are going to have our individual ways and paths, and so you'll find that on some level it is, I'm stepping up to this point, and then I recognize that there might be something beyond. You had an experience like that before, where it's like, I feel like there's, a further experience that I can have, and so you go for it. And then you might step up, and you realize, like, nope, this is it. Like, there's no actual rung above this. This is the ladder ends. I'm finished here. And so then stop. But this is the idea behind the finger pointing to the moon, right? The finger is the teacher or the teachings. The finger isn't really faith. It's like the writings about the faith. It's the system. And you know about systems. They're imperfect. You get tripped up. So the finger pointing to the moon is not the moon, right? The moon is faith or the direction you're heading, or enlightenment, or the divine. And any teacher or religion or set of practices is kind of pointing you in that direction. And so our job is to go in the direction that the finger is pointing. Don't get stuck on the finger. This very small. You're not going to get very far with this. But in the direction, you've got a general direction to go. And then, how you get there exactly is up to you. And this is one of the reasons why I kind of hesitate to get too much into the nitty-gritty of like exactly what should your experience meditating be like, or is this right or wrong? Because it might be right today and wrong tomorrow for you. It might be right for one person and wrong for somebody else. And whether it is or not, certainly when we kind of attach language to it, it's like the Tao that can be named is not the eternal. When we start to think of it in this like logical sense, or it's kind of broken down to the point where we think like everything falls within these steps, then it is kind of limited, right? So faith kind of helps us get beyond that, because we know that we're going in this direction. We don't know how we're going to get there. We don't know exactly where we're going. We just know that this is the direction. And we're not limited by it has to be exactly this way, that is done exactly by this person. But we could do worse. There are lots of amazing gurus and teachers out there where it's like, if we follow exactly what they did, we'll probably end up really in a good place. But then faith is like, I don't know. I don't even know if I try to follow the exact same steps if I'm going to end up in the same place. But this is where I'll finish, because we have to meditate at some point. All of this talking about letting go of, certain attachments to doing certain things the same way, or faith, or whatever it is, it all kind of points to the same idea, which is we don't know what's going to happen in this meditation right here. And that's wonderful. That's beautiful that you don't know what it's going to be like. And you don't know what meditation is going to be like in years from now, and that's also wonderful. So when we sit, we kind of have this idea, a direction that we're trying to go. We're trying to be relaxed. And we're trying not to move around a whole lot. We're trying to get to a higher state of consciousness. But exactly what that looks like, exactly what that feels like, and exactly how we get there is up to you. And in this school, don't move around, sit still and breathe, but whatever else is going on in your mind, you might do a visualization, you might just focus on the breath, you might, find whatever direction you're going in and kind of roll with it. Don't get so relaxed that you just fall asleep. Sit comfortably. So, as a reminder of posture, you should sit with your spine straight. If you lay down, you'll probably start to fall asleep. Your hands are upturned. They can be on your knees, they can be on your hips, they can be together, they can be separate. This kind of helps us get straight sleep. Hold. Close eyes. Eyes upturned, point between the eyebrows, or looking out in the distance ahead of you at about the level of the third eye. Relax and watch the breath. Let go of all thoughts, worries, and cares. Be here now. Your mind wanders. You start to think, you can just label it as thought. Release it. Really feels right. Kind of let that thought take you in a direction